Back in December 2022, I did a video on reaction control and how you can use it and how you can play your games, mainly based around the fact that your fighters, despite them not being all that very good, you can use reactions and you can use that to win your games and mainly make your opponents essentially kill themselves. That was over a year ago now. I am sad to say that that never really caught on. But with the release of the new Castelite Hosts, the replacement of Cities of Sigmar, I think it's coming back. It's coming back in a really big way. And yeah, that's what I want to talk about today. We should be able to see down here, we got Rob. He's here in glorious 3D Technicolor beams directly into your brain.
I made it. Third time's a charm. I was allowed to show my face and take the paper bag off.
He's been doing a ton of testing with the Castelite hosts. We're going to do this kind of in like a list faction focus kind of thing, because I think that's the most interesting way to do things. And yeah, I hope it's going to be something that's real interesting for you. I think the list is real strong. Watch out, because it's going to be coming to an event near you. I almost 100% guarantee that. Mainly because I plan to play it at some point later on in the year. Before we get into that, I just want to say if you want more stuff like this, you want me to get more guests on and do more faction focuses, do more list breakdowns, please do not forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you want to give over some more support, I've got the links down below to my YouTube. You can join that as a member. If you want to throw some support my way over on Patreon, you can do things like see what's coming up soon. You get previews into some of the content that's coming. You can have a say in the kind of videos that I make in the future. But yes, let's get into the video. Okay. So here we are. I wanted to start out really with the list itself. We're going to talk about the different fighters that are in the list, why they're in the list, and a little bit about how it works and kind of why it works. The reason why I found this really interesting is that it was building on concepts that I was thinking about more than a year ago now. And with some of the newer Cities of Sigmar models and fighters that have come out, we now really have the opportunity to put that into practice in a proper, meaningful way that isn't just, here's a bunch of Ossiarch Bone Reapers, I'm going to counter you to death. So, Rob, I'm going to let you go through the list on this one, because you're the architect in this case. So, yeah, let's go through it.
Yeah, man. So the list is kind of like to build it was playing Jenga, and you kind of need to understand a couple pieces for it to work. I'll run down the list right now of it is, and then we'll go together, I guess, through it
Sure.
to see what makes it tick. Why does it tick? Why does this list look like garbage when I first look at it? I understand. So we have a Fuso Major and Ogre Warhulk. You'll see the icon up there. 245. He's the same points as a Crusher. Hits nowhere near as hard as a Crusher.
Yeah.
Has different things. A lot of this is like, but we have an Ogre at home, and this is the Ogre at home. We have to just kind of keep in mind that the reason this works is because of the rune layering for each one. This guy has the Elite and the Bulwark rune. He does have 6 toughness, 35 HP. He's got 6 strength, 3 attacks, 3, 4. Consistent damage. He's not blowing the gates off anything. Hitting on 3s for the most part. Getting hit on 5s for the most part. The cool thing about him is he has a casual 6 to 24 inch range with a model that's higher than most of the Gertries, so that's pretty cool. So you're gonna have line of sight on anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. And it's 2-4-2-4, not blowing the gates off. We're not KO here, right? But we'll get back to him because he's the linchpin in this. We have
Yes.
a free guild marshal with dueling pistols. This is also our flex slot, of which we could slide in other allies or heroes. 2 free guild fusiliers. Not sure how it's pronounced, if it's French or not, but let's go for it. 120. They look atrocious compared to Aether cannons.
These are these are the fighters with the guns, right? Like the multi-barrel.
Yeah, they have the big shield with the gun rifle click
Yeah.
through it. They are 6 to 15 inch range, 2-4-2-4 with the elite rune mark. You look at an Aether cannon and it's like 1 shot, 5 strength, 510. You're like, why would I play this when I could play KO? The Great Herald is at 105 points, probably the second, if not tied for most important piece in the entire list. Does not have a icon or a rune mark, I should say, other than the banner bearer.
Mhm.
Pre-guild Whisperblade. Boys just got some crit fishing to do, and then 3 steel helms.
Yeah.
That's the list I settled on right now. I originally started with 1 Fusilier, but they did not It did not have enough chip damage by the time things arrived to me. Sit there and counter. Old counter control, we didn't have all the power that we have now. So you kind of were able to just, oh, you're going to dice me on 5 ups? Okay, here we go. Haha, I'm winning through counter control with
Mm.
OBR, with the body spam, right? With iron golems, being able to reaction control with that, right?
Yeah, and
We started seeing a
any
lot
cheap
more,
guy that was toughness 5 could
right?
basically do it.
Right. We started seeing a lot more power being introduced and come out, and now there's more of a solid competitive meta game that exists. So when you're dealing with a world of tyrants, brute bosses, mega bosses, Omo, Myrmidons, all
Sure.
those things, your standard, I'm just going to sit here and hopefully counter you off the board becomes a little less enticing. Too many Titan models now. Now you
Yeah,
have
yeah,
like the
yeah.
introduction of Clawback, who's like, I don't care. I'm closing the gap. I'm throwing a ton of dice.
Hmm.
You're not going to do anything other than get hit on 4s. And then I'm
Yes.
just going to sit there and cleave you off in like one swing or two.
Yeah, and usually
So,
these guys are going to be strength
right,
6-ish anyway. If we're talking about
for
stuff
sure.
like the Mega Boss, they're going to be strength 6. They're going to be doing
Yeah.
like 4-8 damage, and they're
Yeah.
going to one shot or they're going to two shot your fighters.
So you have up here is this reaction control, and I'd arguably say yeah, but it's a splash of something else, which is cool too.
Sure.
You're leveraging the strength of your Castelite wall reaction. It's the only thing that can deflect ranged or melee as a counter, as long as
Hmm.
you have an elite rune mark by. That's really sweet. Your steel helms are 60 points for 10 HP, 4 toughness, 4 move. Sign me up.
Pretty good.
The Faciliers just sit back behind everything, give out the rune mark, and
Hmm.
just chip shots away till things get in there. And if you want to have somebody send a Neve, an Achillean King, a Varangard to go and fight, one of these, sure, cool. I'm just gonna go move and do other things while you're doing that.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. And how it all works, because we get all these reactions, you're gonna take a look at it and be like, well, the OBR list had like 10, 11 skellies. So
Hmm.
you're able to outweight and then still be able to react and set up for where you want to be. Well, how do you do it with 9? Well, that's where the Great Herald comes into play, and we'll find that out very
Yeah.
shortly
I
because
mean,
the
let's
triple can be warriors, right?
yeah, let's look at that now. Let's check out
Okay.
the reaction.
We're ready. We're ready. We're ready.
We're ready, yeah. So this is for anyone who doesn't know, this is really the linchpin of how this warband works and why it works, really. And the reaction is Castelite Wall. This is available to anyone with the Castelite Cities of Sigmar rune marks, any of the humans. And just to go over it, so the fighter can make the reaction after they're targeted by an attack action, but before hit rolls are made, if they're within 3 inches of another friendly fighter with Bulwark and or the Elite rune mark. So the things here with Bulwark and Elite, obviously we've got the Ogre Warhulk, we've got your basic Steel Helms, and we've got your Fusiliers. They have, between them, they've got Bulwark and Elite. Some have Bulwark, some have Elite. The Ogre has both. If that friendly fighter has Bulwark, you get +1 toughness. If that fighter has Elite, for each hit roll that misses, you're going to do 2 damage points to the attacking fighter. The important thing is here that it mentions attack action, not ranged attack or melee attacks. You're always going to be getting this 2 damage back if the attack that hits you misses and you're within range of one of your friendly fighters. And if that friendly fighter that you're near has both Bulwark and Elite, you get both effects. So if you are next to the Ogre, for example, who has both, you're going to get +1 toughness and you're going to reflect back any misses with 2 damage. So yeah, this is basically the core of the list, how it works and why it works. And you saw during the list building section, the idea is that you need enough of each rune mark on the battlefield to be able to meaningfully use this reaction in the different places that you need to need to use it.
Right, and that's the tough part, right? Because they can only make the reaction if they're within 3 of another friendly fighter, so they can't take their own rune mark. The big thing about this reaction is it's the only thing that's not locked in faction, right? So if
Mm.
I have another ally with an elite rune mark,
Oh
they can
yes,
absolutely take,
yeah, for
right, they can
sure.
absolutely
That's
take.
not something that I even considered before because normally you don't even think about it when you're doing your list building. But yeah, like most of the time it's when this is in range of a Cities of Sigmar, blah blah blah. But it doesn't have
Yep.
that in this case.
Almost all their abilities except for one quad are locked to Castelite hosts.
Hmm.
This is the only thing that's not locked, so it gives some cheeky building. However, the big thing is if something's out of faction, it just does not benefit from everything we're doing here. So you look at the
Yeah.
Ogre Warhulk, and
Mhm.
it gives both one toughness and one counter. So
Yep.
anything near it that borrows it within 3 inches, like, well, my steel helm goes up to 5 toughness, and any misses 2 damage back to you. So this is like super counter. What is great is, oh man, I'm gonna throw a bunch of dice from Fight for Profit. My Arcanaut pistols are hitting on 5s. I have 4 dice I'm throwing. Well,
Yep.
you're gonna be hitting on 5s. I'm countering +2. It's also great too if you're not near the Warhulk. You can just take from another steel home. Could borrow from another steel home. Just go up to
Yeah.
T5, or it could borrow from the Castelite or the Fusilier to just for the wall counter, and that's also fine. You can pick and choose. You don't need both at the same time, but it is
Yes.
really nice when you do get it.
Oh
Trust me,
yeah.
it's awesome.
Most basic shooting is going to be hitting you at strength 3, right? If we look at Wilder Corpse Hunters, for example, all of their crossbows are basically strength 3. So they're going to be winning you on 5s anyway, so you don't necessarily need the +1 toughness. But something like the Arbalester, which is only strength 4, maybe your opponent uses Divine Blessings to boost it to strength 5, suddenly you can get the +1 toughness as well. And even that
Right.
thing, which normally will delete a normal fighter, suddenly it's winning on 4s. And half of its
Right.
hits are going to miss. And it's only got 12 wounds. It won't last forever. Similarly with Pock, Quiet Pock is very popular nowadays. People to just splash him into order lists to get that extra Arbalester style of shooting. He's again strength 4. He can go up to strength 5. But being able to boost the toughness on top of doing the reflection damage, again, from anything melee or ranged, I think is super, super strong. You mentioned Caradron Overlords, and they are, well, I mean, they are one of the best warbands in the game, simply because they have the ability to sit on an objective and then shoot you off another objective. They can't do that against Castelite Hosts, because, as you've said, if they're throwing 4 dice at you with a Fight for Profit guy, they're going to be winning on 5s. On average, 3 of those dice are going to miss, so they're going to reflect 6 damage back to themselves just by missing with one of their attacks, and that's massive in the scope of a game.
Yep, it is. It is massive, and it's so how I list build. It just for sidetracking for a little bit,
Yeah,
just to
sure.
let people. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned in other videos I've been in or whatever it might be. You have to answer a couple things. What's my mission pack I'm building into? Like, is it objective? Is it kill based? Right? How am I going to answer KO? How
Hmm.
am I going to answer big boys like Titans? Can I answer swarms or can I or anything like that? So brawl, ranged, or am I going to answer like bodies of things? Right?
Sure.
You can't build for everything. It's not possible. And if it is, if you could get very close to it, good for you. It's mostly you can have a weakness somewhere. I always build towards KO. We have more
Yes.
KO in the States from what I've seen.
Hmm.
It's also sometimes the most non-interactive game, right? Like I don't want to set up and be like shot, 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 dead,
Yeah.
right? Oh, did I run in time to get there to you and take a million shots and then tie you up and then fight for points arbitrarily? No, I'm not going to do that, right? So everything I kind of build is to be able to handle that.
Hmm.
And this absolutely just tells them to go jog off.
But I mean, another thing I like about this, just as a side note, is that it doesn't need any dice to do your gimmick. So most warbands, your main thing will usually be on a triple, or maybe if you're on a double, if you're lucky. But this doesn't need any of that. It just needs the right rune marks where you want them. So it's much
Yep.
more. You're working on your positioning during the game, as opposed to having to worry about, oh, I don't have the triples I need to do my Fight for Profit or my Calthea Zandire ability or my whatever. And that's something that really appeals to me. Anything that allows me to just play the game as opposed to having to specifically worry about all these different things that I might need for my warbands to kind of mesh together. That's really something that appeals.
Yeah, it's awesome. So if you want a castle in Warcry, usually it takes dice to set up. Look
Yeah.
at Lumineth, right? They need Shining Company, but every turn that castle breaks, you reset. Whereas with reactionary control, like Cruel Boys, like this, like Monster Killers, it's I just have to be in a position to where I'm okay. I don't need dice. I just got to be smart and mind my 3 inch bubble. If you could do that and position and play well, you're pretty good. Now there are things to help it too. The triple that moves you can move guys
Hmm.
into position to get to him to get to this 3 inch bubble. And you
Yes.
see the Castelite formation off the Ogre Warhulk. This is not a dice hungry warband. There's sometimes I just have dice and I'm like, okay, I'm not really ever rampaging. That means I'm not moving. But the +2 toughness from that, you're putting your warband up. Steel helms go up to 6 toughness.
Mm.
And then when they borrow the reaction, they're going up to 7. Your 60-point model becomes an annihilator with a shield.
Yeah, should
Like,
we check those out then? So let's check out the
absolutely.
fighters individually to
We need
see
to.
what they can do. So let's go on to this. So yeah, we're talking about the Fusil Major on Warhulk. It's got its double, which is what we're talking about, Castelite formation. You need both the hero and the bulwark rune marks to do it. And until the end of the battle round, anyone within 3 inches and that are also Castelite hosts get +1 toughness. It does say friendly fighters, not visible friendly fighters. So the Warhawk goes up to toughness 8. Toughness 8.
Goes up to 8. T8, baby.
Yeah, which means there is nothing in the game that can wound him on a 4 that I know of.
Right. It's so awesome. And the thing is, with other factions, like we've had increased toughnesses before.
Yes.
Typically they're on triples and it's 1 toughness.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a garbage use for a
It just
triple.
kind of
Maybe
yeah.
back in the day when it was just untamed beast versus iron golems and the signifier would use like to increase it AoE, right? Like cool, that was cool back in the day. Now that would not be like applicable. You'd just be like, well, everything's gonna get nuked. This saying like all the like look at the 2 guys here, the dueling pistols and the Fusilier are gonna go up to T6 and T7 respectively.
Which is
That's
huge.
wild.
Yeah.
Right. So even when you're encroaching on like ranged gun lines, it keeps them very honest. And it's kind of awesome because even then running up and it's like, okay, everything you're hitting is on 5s. Good luck gambling. And then I'm reflecting it back to you. Castelite formation for a double is absolutely absurd. It does not care about the value and it just makes everything else just go. And it's so great.
I think it's one of the better doubles simply because it is just better than other triples of its similar type. And just talking about the Warhulk for a minute, you were right before. It doesn't look like, you look at it on paper and it's like, oh, this is kind of bad. The Warhulk, yeah, it's got a bunch of wounds, yeah, it's got a bunch of toughness, but for 2, 4, 5, destruction will be bringing like a 4-8 damage profile to the table with 3 or 4 attacks, or they'll be much faster, or any. There are a whole host of other fighters at that price point which are arguably better. But I think as a linchpin for this particular army, given that it's got those rune marks, just by virtue of the synergies that it has within the army and within with the other fighters, yeah, those 245 points suddenly go way further than you would normally get.
That's the crazy part. So we're looking to make a lot of smaller pieces into a big machine. And obviously, if you spread it out, the machine's not as good. However, we're going to look at Ogre Warhulk as a mobile support command, right? Like a mobile HQ. Next to it, everything is great. Alone with it, it's still functional and can still output. Anything that comes near it, it dictates its presence. If you want to avoid it and run away from it, and I'm moving with it, he's just going to sit there and shoot if he just wants to chill on a point. It's not great damage, but he's also able to make things weak around the map. So when you do go to an area and you want to fight, you're going to get countered again. So there is that presence. Using him is really tricky because a lot of people see that toughness 6, strength 6. They just want to gun them right in, right? Or having a 24-inch range, they want to just sit back and shoot. And it's about making tempo plays with him, right? Because you have to get him into position and you have to be able to get him to where you need to and also engage. He's got a pretty big base. He dictates a lot of base on the board, so you have to respect it. A well-played game with him will look like he has half life left, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like if you do want to break the castle apart, you want to spread him out, he's still going to hold his own on the place. And that's a sign of good 245. He's not doing what a crusher does. He's not running in 4-8. He's not fighting mega bosses hand to hand, although the mega boss hits on 4s, not on 3s against him. He's got decent move. He's got that range. Like there's a lot of pieces to him, and bringing that wall and bringing that toughness aura to everybody just makes him so much better. And that's what, like you'll probably use a double once a turn to just pop it, go in, sit them where you want them. And unlike playing other key pieces that are larger where you most likely want to move them last to make more impact plays, you can move them, sit him, put out his aura, and then have everything fight around and center around him. Everybody knows what's going on. And if they move towards you, cool. They're just playing right into your plan. If they don't move at you, keep shooting.
Yeah, and you know what? Because you aren't massively dice hungry, like you
Yeah,
could throw an onslaught into this, and suddenly
sure.
4 6 3 4 is it's a decent chunk of damage he's throwing out.
Right. If he's by himself, I'll onslaught all day.
Yeah,
That's not a problem.
yeah,
Like that's really not an issue. If he's with a big group of people, make everybody tougher. If he's with one person that's not going to be doing anything, like a Facilier, I'm just going to onslaught too as well.
sure.
Like he utilizes whatever you give him very generously, and I really like that. He's a really good key player.
So moving on, we've got the Marshal with dueling pistols. You said this was a bit of a flex slot for you.
Yeah, you could take any of the free gold marshals are all really good. They're all
Hmm.
really excellent. I think with this build and the amount I made, it comes out 2,000 evenly with the two faciliers.
Yes, I think
I
it does.
like the 3-4-2-4, 3 to 7 range. Lets him kind of just dance around behind everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Anybody not coming in immediately gets shot and peppered. Sometimes he can set up and wait for a deployment to come in and just kind of blast and pepper a couple, hide behind some steel helms or a Facilier, and give out his elite rune mark to everybody.
Yes.
And that's sometimes all you need. That's enough. And he's really been overperforming for what he does. And I was really surprised. I think I have about 20 reps with this list in specific. And I have been impressed with him almost every single time instead of just trying to run another 3-5-3-5 melee guy that just swings, and then if I miss he's just dunzos, you know.
Yeah,
And
I
then you
think
see
he's fine.
he's absolutely okay. The Facilier is just another
Mm.
again, he's important because the design of this list is I want a elite in every deployment
Yes.
and I want
Yes.
a bulwark in every deployment, and I
Hmm.
get that. He
Yeah.
gives that to me. The Faciliers give that to me, and the Ogre Warhulk gives that to me. So it's just kind of careful by design. I could have taken the Marshal with the shield,
Hmm.
and he could also do Castelite formation, which is really sick. But I think they performed so much better, which is having this chip damage arriving to everything. Again, I have limited testing, only 20 game sample size with this
You
list.
see,
I
you say only. That's
really,
more testing than most people get.
but yeah, no, man, he's done really well. I'd like to see how they perform into a lot of other things.
Mhm.
I do think we'll cover the weaknesses later, but
Yeah, sure.
I do think he could do that. The free guild Facilier, I just don't like. We discussed them before. 5
Mm.
toughness, 10 HP, 15-inch range. I like them because in the KO matchup, I could just point right at the Aether Cannon and go shoot, hitting on
Yes.
4s. Put a couple chip damage. Now all of a sudden, say we do a full 4 damage to it, it's down to 8, and he wants to fire on something that he's going to be hitting on 4s or 5s. He's going
Yeah,
to be taking 2 back from things, and
sure.
he's not going to be able to reach the Facilier without being in range of something like getting closer to everything else encroaching.
Yeah.
So it puts everything in a bad spot. And having 2 of them, one usually just chills and fires wherever he wants to go, and the other kind of gets into a better position and fortifies the rest with the elite mark. At the very worst, it becomes like a 120 point roadblock, which I'm not happy about. But having the ability to take the bulwark rune mark and go up to 6T to just kind of stave off whatever's happening.
They're not going to trade up in damage, that's for sure. But if
Right.
you
They're
can
not going
get
to trade.
something,
They're looking to stop them.
exactly right. So if
Right.
it takes 2 turns, for example, to kill it versus something else that would have otherwise taken 1 turn, that's like half the game your opponent has wasted on that fighter trying to kill a fusilier that's basically just sitting there and not really doing all that much.
That's it. That's honestly all it is. It's simple put. They looked so bad when I first saw them, and I think everybody reviewing them is like, this is trash. Why would I
Mhm.
ever pay 120 points for that? That elite rune mark just makes things work so smooth. And when steel helms are sitting in front of it, screening it out, and all of a sudden the steel helms are like, well, you're hitting on 4s or 5s. I'm just gonna take that and counter you. Everything's 2.
Yeah.
And it becomes a very, very, very different game very quickly.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Right, so let's go on. Let's carry on. So next up, we've got the Free Guild Command Corps Great Herald, the big boy with the banner. Really, the only reason you're taking this is for his triple, but what a triple it is! It's real good.
Yeah, it's faction locked, so it's Castelite Host faction rune mark within 6 inches of the fighter. Can
6 inches is
bonus-
massive on a war.
Makes a bonus move action. It must end closer to the fighter, so you have a lot of wiggle room how that works, right?
Yeah, you
I
can
haven't
move
been able
past
to
him as long
Past
as
it
you're
as long as it's closer.
a millimeter closer than you were when you started the walk. You're absolutely fine.
100%. really not the worst stat line.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's just like, hey, we have the Ogre Warhol. We shoot and then move, right? You're
Yes.
like, oh, cool. So you did 2 damage, you did 4 damage, whatever it might be. Then everybody moves. Everybody moves closer. All of a sudden, he moves, pulls everybody into a spot where they need to be.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, that 3-inch bubble of everybody sharing stuff, super close.
Mm.
Definitely want to try and take this piece out as fast as you can. But the fact he's usually going to be within 3 of the Warhulk and some other fighters, he's usually going up to toughness 6. So then you're putting a lot of resources deal with 105 points. And he's a essential piece to make this move. So he's the whole reason, like this and the Castelite formation and the Castelite wall, why taking allies is tough, because you can't move allies. You
Yeah.
want some allies that are really good to move, but he's so pivotal and important. If I don't care what list you come up to play, if you're not taking a massive everybody makes a move. I've had 5 dudes move. You can also move dudes into engagement after things have already
Yeah,
been
you
action.
can. Sure, it's just a bonus move. So
Right. So even if like they've attacked, that model's attacked something, move a steel helm to throw some extra dice on it. Why not?
Mm.
You're gonna get chip damage. It's gonna make sure that all of a sudden he's got a buddy to share a rune mark with to make it even tougher. It's just the plays you can do with this are wild. Or my favorite, if you run the cavalry, just a fun thought process, runs up, grabs a treasure, comes back, all of a sudden he moves a triple, everything moves back closer to him.
Yeah.
Like you have ways to just get in and get out, things to engage. It's so great, dude. But you're getting 3 actions effectively out of everybody. So that's what enables this reaction style control of giving everybody, essentially everybody has 3 actions.
There's something I was going to mention actually. So other versions of reaction control, let's say you do it with Ossiarch Bone Reapers, let's say you do it with with the spider guys, if you really wanted to, because reaction is going to be taking up your normal actions. That normally limits what they can do during a game, because if you're going to move somewhere and you're going to wait wherever it is you are, that's your actions done, and then you're actually open to being counterattacked. But if you do use the Great Herald, get that free move off, it keeps your actions free to be able to do your reactions and to be able to do other stuff during the turn.
Right.
And I think that's really where its main strength is, especially for a list like this.
Yeah, and that's the cool part too, because I could sit there and wait everybody one turn.
Yeah.
So if you still want to shoot, or if you're able to get in there, or I can just literally wait, let you make your moves. I know you have no shooting, you have nothing else. Move everybody, and then just pull everybody again. So not only have I like acted like I'm playing a larger warband, I've got myself to play around your positioning. If you're playing anything less than the 9 models, I'm gonna have a super huge advantage. The only thing I haven't really tested it against is very, very big war bands at that point. But also keep in mind, like, they're not very high health, high defense. I have 4 points of shooting in here. So I don't see it being too much of an issue unless my dice are just completely bad. But it's not bad. It's pretty interesting.
Yes.
And that's what gives us that ability to like have 9, but it acts like it's more. So it's really awesome. It's a really flavorful, fun piece. My only complaint about it is the face on the model is horrific. Like, we only have a small picture here. Absolutely dog water. Horrible tier. I cut off a pauldron of a stormcast, glued it on the front because I was like, this guy gets a face guard. Nobody needs to see this. And it actually ended up looking pretty cool for it. He just looks horrible. He looks shell shocked. That's terrible. It's awful. But yeah, man, that's
the things he's seen.
Yeah, watching people's legs get blown off. To me, warriors, and then you're just like, okay, I guess. Maybe.
Next up, we've got the Whisper Blade. You've included that as one of. I can see why. It's fine. I think it's a versatile model. It's got that 5 crit and the 4 attacks, so you've got decent chances of hitting that 5 crit every now and again. 15 wounds is really good for an 80-point model, I think, especially considering that the Whisper Blade can always just use the reaction. He'll be in range of his buddies, go up to toughness 4, reflect some damage back. So yeah, I think it's fine.
80 points for 15 wounds is Ard Boy territory. I'm more than happy to pay that. A lot of people target it right away. I don't know why. Like, oh man, it's an assassin. Like, sure, like I have dropped higher toughness models down like at 20 HP down to like 2, like from this inconspicuous model, but I have to get lucky for that.
Yeah.
I put him and the Herald are in the deployment with the Warhulk.
Okay.
And that's so they can both borrow, if you want to target them, they're both going to borrow the rune from the Ogre. The Whisper Blade could just go, react. Okay, I'm 4 up. You're hitting on 4s, and I have 15 health. I'm going to reflect anything back. And then the Free Guild Herald just moves and pulls him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's not a big tempo loss. So those two kind of work together, and then the Whisper Blade just does whatever the Whisper Blade wants, usually targets support pieces, tries to dice them, or goes to help a buddy and tries to dice them. It's got that quad, right?
That fun
which
quad,
I have used twice, right? It's awesome. It's the biggest gotcha play in all of Warhammer because you're never thinking about a quad as anything other than some stick faction quad or
like
rampage.
Some super rampage or something.
Yeah, right. Like makes an extra attack on everything. Sure. Roll 3 dice for each 4-up. Your opponent must discard 1 wild dice from their saved wild dice. People being like, I'm going to bank it turn 1. And then you're like, I got this quad. I'm going to make you remove that wild dice. It can kind of blow them out of the water because not only did they not get to add extra value to their turn, they lose value to their next turn. Sure. I'm not using it often, but it's hilarious. I think the dream is to have somebody who takes the blessings for wild dice, bank 2 wild dice, and then just get rid of them.
Yeah, strip them on someone.
I just want to see someone get upset from it once.
Sure.
And I'll be happy. He's fun, dude. It's the whole Free Guild Command Core is an awesome box. Those two come together. Comes with a couple other pieces. They're just really good, really fun models.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was looking at the Castelite Hosts. They've got a lot of like weird characters kind of in the middle that you wouldn't necessarily want to take multiples of, but if you took them as one-offs, it wouldn't be absolutely terrible. They got a ton of like different kinds of heroes in there, again in that command box. So yeah, there's a lot of weird variety in that list.
There's so much personality in these little dudes. Even the Steel Helms, like they got some chubbo dudes in there.
Our friend down there, he looks like he's
a little portly, right? the free cities are eating well, and that's cool, dude. They're bulking up for that bulwark rune mark. They got other people to like. There's a really good diversity of heads, faces, body parts. Yeah. They have so much character for this, and I think it's a really, really cool human warband. And they nailed it spot on with them. It's super great.
Sure. And yeah, lastly, we've already talked about them. The Steel Helms, 60 points, 10 wounds, toughness 4. It's pretty good.
Give me that chaff. Give me that chaff. Give me that chaff value, my guy. They're good. They're just solid overall. Go up to T5, T6, sometimes T7. They're just sitting there. I only run 3 of them. You just kind of put them in front and screen stuff. They're going to eat. Sure. They're going to get killed most likely. Will it do well against Gutlords? No. I don't think anything does. Will Aether Cannons they're due?
A Gutlord is strength 6, right? You can boost these guys. They do the counter reflect as well. So you know what? A Gutlord wounding on 5s is suddenly.
Yeah, it's not the scariest, but I mean,
if it hits a couple of hits, sure, the Steel Helm will die, but it might not.
It's 1/6, the Steel Helm's gone. But same thing with the Aether Cannon, right? Like it's just gonna happen. You got to account for that. Like you're not invincible. I mean, we said all we could about them. They're good dudes. They're good lads.
Yeah,
they're on the front lines.
Sure. Right, so moving on, any alternatives to this? Because we were talking about some kind of different things that you might want to be able to field otherwise. You were talking about the Gunnery Sergeant. The Gunnery Sergeant does have the Elite Rune Mark, which means that you can leverage off of that for your reaction for your other guys. But the important thing about the Gunnery Sergeant is it's not fight for profit, and suddenly those 2-shot turn into 3 or 4-shot Fusiliers. That's when they get real good.
It's a little silly, right? Like, so he lacks the mobility and the positioning to be pulled by you're giving up being right. You're giving up getting the +2. You're giving up the reaction. You're giving up the banner. Giving up a lot for fight for profit, which does matter. But he's got 15-inch range, so you're most likely going to go like turn 1, like move him to an objective, drop FFP, fire 5, right? And then all of a sudden, your banner boys pulling up the Fusiliers into the FFP range.
Yeah.
And now you're getting blasted for like KO dice. And you're just like, what? Like you didn't expect that from this. Now all of a sudden you're running in because you got to deal with it. If you're not dealing with it, you got to be able to close the gap. You're getting screened out while you're still getting peppered. And then you're letting me set up and get tighter bubbles.
Sure.
So he's cool. He's got his plays. He's got some interesting abilities to him. I don't mind it. I think if you take out the Free Guild, you have to move the Whisper Blade into a Steel Helm.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he also gives the Elite Rune Mark, which is the biggest thing. you have to weigh out, like, depending, I guess, on your mission and what your local meta or what meta you anticipate,
Mm.
is it worth it to lose 3 things of synergy to give fight for profit in a longer initial engagement range? Because then all of a sudden you have the sergeant, to the Fusiliers, and the Warhulk.
Mm.
You got 4 things that are just going to be able to fire into something right off the rep.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a bit more of an aggressive player, I think the sergeant might be a good option
That
because like
triple also competes for the movement
it
triple,
does
which is
it
something
does
people don't
compete,
think.
yeah,
Right.
but I think it depends where the power spike of your warband is going to be. I think the gunnery sergeant allows you to have a much earlier power spike because you can engage opponent models basically from turn one, and you can engage them with really meaningful shots from the Fusiliers and the Warhulk, and even him just shooting his dice with Fight for Profit. It's a good chunk of damage, and between those 4 models, they will take out one. They will take out 2 chaff units real easy. But then what do? You sacrifice later on in the game for the power that you would otherwise have when your opponent actually manages to get to you and they manage to engage you. So yeah, I think it just depends on where you want your strength to be, and that will really be dependent on the mission pack that you're playing and the different kinds of objectives that you're actually playing into, I think.
It's all correct. All correct.
The last thing, we've talked a little bit about allies, how you can get the gunnery sergeant in there. There are a few other options. I don't really want to spend too much time on this, to be honest, because of the way the warband works. There
Most
isn't
likely not
really
taking them.
much, yeah, there isn't much space. So what we're really looking for is stuff with the bulwark rune mark or stuff with the elite rune mark to be able to use. Or we've got the Medusa here as just an all-round fighter that you can use to kind of countercharge things that you otherwise wouldn't have answers to, just out of being able to counter your way out of problems. So yeah, that's why we've got things here like the Iron Scale, the Runefather with Bokars, both have the elite rune mark. A bunch of new Cities of Sigmar dwarf characters have the Bulwark rune mark, which you can also use. But yeah, that's really where we are in that case, I think.
The because I think the Flame Seeker father really, really, really interests me
Hmm.
really hard. Being 5T, 22 wounds at 150,
It's real
and
good.
being able, right, has ignite weapons, has the move on a double, right?
Hmm.
Like if I move twice, I move again,
Yes.
has a 2-inch range, able to kind of dictate space. That one is the most interesting to me. If I was to
Yeah.
take out like the others and be like, listen, I'm gonna have some big dudes coming on me. All of a sudden, I can fight up and start critting easier and punch through armor a little harder.
Yeah.
You look at the Iron Scale, which fits the Elite Rune Mark. So is Gorgai, not pictured here, but just the fighty sister of Snake. You look at that 245, but then you start looking back at the Ogre Warhulk, and you're like, wow, the Warhulk's not as bad as I initially thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
245, right? That Warhulk will chew right through this thing. Like,
Sure.
there's no way it's going to get touched. I could be wrong. You could bless it, prove me wrong. I don't care. It's good. The Warden King and other dispossessed heroes just serve to say, I have a double on more bodies. If I die, here's an extra action.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
he's
They,
for
they really
145.
improve your objective
Yeah,
game.
right. The objective game is really cool. I think they also draw a lot of heat too. I think I've gotten beat enough by Rune Lord for 110 points for now where I'm like, oh, you know what? I just target them right off the bat. I'll take them giving an extra reaction. They can't count on, plus twoing at the end to win on Hidden Vault. So that's pretty interesting. But I think the Gunnery Sergeant and the Rune Father are probably my 2 biggest. I think we can do that, like sub them in if I really want to lose those synergies, but
Sure.
have a lot of power in an alternate spot from a different piece.
I have been thinking about how to beat it, basically, especially considering that I play predominantly kind of ranged, slippery warbands that like to get in and out of get in and out of the place. And the answer that I've come to is basically you choose a guy and then you focus him down and you just accept that you're going to take a bunch of damage from the reaction. But if you're going to be in the position where you can kill one or maybe 2 guys in a turn just by weight of combined arms, that's probably the best way you've got to go if you're fighting against it.
Yeah, that's one of the better ways to fight against it. I think the making them spread out and being able to make them split and break their bubbles is a big thing.
Sure. So things like pulls
Uh,
from like the beast, the
yeah,
beast
dude,
wizard.
Front Team Beasts, the Great Bray Shaman,
Yeah,
all those guys, fantastic. If you could pull them out of position or get them out of position, really devastates them.
yeah.
I mean, I can also just run up and pull guys to them again with the
Hmm.
Great Herald. So I have some insurance against it.
I mean, the Great Herald is going to be, if you're playing against it, he's
You
basically
got it.
going to be target
Right.
number one. Like, you need to kill him because the value that he gives to the warband is so much that
Right.
he can't be
The
allowed
other
to
thing is
lose.
like tyrants do pose an issue. We're not
Yeah,
good fighters naturally here. We're not going to be sitting there and like counter meleeing you. So if like you're rolling hot and my reactions are doing nothing, I lose like 75% of my value.
sure, sure,
We're really susceptible to being bigger, fightier things. Like I wouldn't want to go against Stormcast. I wouldn't want to go against
sure.
ogres. I feel like a tyrant or a gut lord just coming in and being like, nope, nope. When I first made it, I did feel bad. I was like, man, I was like, off meta's gonna hate this. It just counters everything he plays. Like hunters of Hawanchi just disappear when they look at these
They
guys.
they do, but you know, the more I think about it, there are ways to play against it. It's not a
Yeah,
foolproof plan.
for sure.
And I'm good. The thing is, I'm winning on fives anyway. Like most of the time, if you're talking about Wilder Corp hunters, you're talking about hunters of one sheep, whatever. They're pretty much always winning on fives, and you kind of just
Proficient,
accept that.
right?
But again, if you focus, there are only so many reactions that a guy can make in a turn. He can only make two.
Right. You have to right. You have to dump
So
so many resources though.
yes. The question is, what order are you going to push attacks into these guys? So let me
Right.
use Wilder Corp Hunters as an example. You want your opponent to waste their reaction on attacks that might not necessarily get the best yield, right? So the first thing to fire, for example, would be your Arbalister, because the Arbalister's got two shots. Even if it's wounding on fives, it's got a high amount of damage, but because it's only got two shots, it limits the amount of damage that the Arbalister can actually take back from the reaction. And then once the Arbalister's done, if you manage to bait your opponent into wasting their reactions on the Arbalister, then your Trailblazers go wild and they'll just pour dice into a thing and it will die eventually in that turn.
Ordering is very important. The crossbows throwing 4 dice hitting on fives. I was reflecting like 4 to 6 back, so probably average 5 back to them an attack round.
Oh yeah,
And
that's why you need
that's
to focus down one guy because you can't just shoot
right,
five or six different
right,
guys and have all of them able to react at you and then do a whole ton of damage back.
right. You're also going to take fire as you're coming in.
Yeah,
It's a really tough matchup for ranged into mine, and
I'm sure.
I mean that's how I built it though. I built to fight KO, and
Yeah.
anything else in its way gets kind of shot up.
Yes.
I think Wilder Core still are phenomenal and fantastically
Oh,
strong.
they're great.
So like
They're
that,
great.
you could just blow up any target like with the mini Hrothgorn in the back,
Yes.
right? So it's good though. Yeah, man, you just gotta beat them up. You gotta be bigger brawlers, or you gotta spread me out with more speed,
Yeah.
and you could take advantage of that and just roll better. And that's
So
pretty much their weakness.
something like your classic Chaos allies of like Varangard, Fulminate, Crusher would just go, haha, let's go in this
Right,
case.
right. Because Varangard can get the jump. Like
Yeah.
I don't get set up if he's like flying in already. It's cool though. It's awesome. Yeah, but that's how you handle this warband. You just
Sure.
come at him and focus, take out its key targets. It's hard to ignore the Warhulk, but you have to get the Herald down first. Once
Yes.
you get the Herald down, I slow down in what I can do, and my sequencing becomes more essential because
Yeah.
it doesn't. I don't give a shit when I get an extra. Excuse my language.
That's,
I don't. I don't. I don't care when I get an extra third action on everybody.
Hmm.
So getting him out's the key. It is not the end all to be all. It is by far. I think it's like an A tier. I would say it's A tier. It's got to show up. I played the puzzle that GW James gave us the puzzle. I played the puzzle. The puzzle's great. I love it. It was really fun to build it. And this is not the end all to be all. Like list build. Go in the comments. Tell me what you think would be good. Tell me why you think
sure.
I'm wrong. Tell me how I mispronounced Facilier. Right? Like go do. And I'm gonna tell you I don't care. I'm pronouncing it that way. And then you're gonna get shot off the table by the
That's
two.
the way it's pronounced in
Now,
America.
it might not even be. Everybody's pronounced it your way. I just forget every single time it comes up in my head, and I'm just smooth brain cretin. So like, don't mind me.
That is it for today. I hope that's given you guys a little something to think about when building your Castelite Host warband. I think it's a very interesting list and a very interesting way to play, especially with all the new tech that we've got kind of in the last year and how Games Workshop has really advanced in how they are designing their warbands. I think it really shows in some of the new Cities of Sigmar stuff. But yeah, as always, if you like what you see, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know down in the comment section below what you think about this list, what you think about Castelite Hosts, if you have any interesting builds that you want to share, if you have any interesting tales from recent battles, we are always happy to hear it. And yeah, if you want to make fun of the way Rob says Fusilier, please do. That's something we'll take into account for next time.
You're wrong, and I stand my ground.
There we go. But yes, thank you very much for joining me, Rob. As always, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Absolutely, man. I love coming here.
Thank you. And yeah, that's been us for today. I've been Itan, this has been Off Meta Musings, that's been Rob, and we will see you next time.
Have a good day, guys. Take care.